Howdy folks, how's it going? Thanks for joining me in the brewery, and as you can see I've got 3 beers in front of me. Could mean I'm thirsty, could mean I'm greedy, but maybe it just means it's time to actually do a proper tasting, well let's just say tasting it all, of the 3 wedding beers. The Brut IPA, this is my wedding XPA, and the Meeting of the Clans Scottish Ale. Before I get into them, big shout out to Little John's Patrons. Thanks for your support. Guys, there's a link down the bottom if you're interested in Patreon. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified when there's a new video. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. But let's go. Wedding beers. The wedding was on Saturday, just gone. So yeah, about a week ago. Took 3 beers down. We had a little bit of trouble with keeping them cold. We didn't have as much room behind the bar as I would have liked, and the fridges that were behind the bar weren't big enough to get the kegs into to get them really cold. So I battled around with fucking eskies and stuff. Ideally I would have had the kegs in bins of ice, but there just wasn't room to do that with the tap setup. So they didn't pour great. They were quite a bit frothy, and as a result of not getting cold enough, there wasn't enough gas in the beers, so they were a little bit undercarbonated. That being said though, got good feedback, and plenty of people liked the beers. It was just a drama for the bar staff to pour them and put people off a little bit, but hey, at the end of the day, wedding was a great time, and I've got myself at least a little bit of drinking left in each keg, so I'm pretty happy with that, because I was actually worried the kegs were going to get annihilated, there'd be nothing left, and I wouldn't actually even get to do a tasting video on any of these 3 beers. So here we are, about to do so. Now, I'm going to taste these in order of their lightness or their darkness, depends how you want, going through. But in the progress of how I brewed them, the XPA was the first beer I did, followed by the Brut IPA and the Scottish, but that won't matter. I'll stick a link up the top here in the corner to each brew for brew day, so you can go back and have a look at those. But that'll have the recipes and all that sort of stuff. And if I think about it, I'll drop the recipe links for Brewfather into the comments down below. So, starting with the Wedding Day Brut IPA. This fella, he's nice and light. This is brew that the wife wanted. Mrs. Little John was a bit keen. She wanted to have a couple of beers, and she liked a Brut IPA, so I did that. In the end, it was a little hoppier than she would have really liked, but anyway. So let's have a quick look. I said recipe links are there. This fella started at 1039, finished at 1002 for an ABV of 4.9%. Let's bring up the recipe, have a quick look here. 70% base malt, and then 15% flaked corn and flaked rice for the mash bill. Hops were Citra and Nectaron, some Citra in the boil, and then Citra Nectaron, well actually Citra in the boil, Nectaron in a whirlpool, and then Citra Nectaron dropped twice in 2 different dry hops. So my first beer using the Nectaron, this was a big reduction in alcohol for Brut IPA. It's normally a mid 6% beer, because normally I do it and then pull off a half the batch to do a Brut, for the India Pale Lager. So this is the first time I've brewed this beer as a normal strength beer. But that's it. Got a nice little fruity nose. Smells a tad salty, and that's going to come down to the minerals. I did go reasonably heavy with the chloride, almost 3-to-1 chloride to gypsum. Actually no, it is 3-to-1, and I pushed the lactic a little bit more than I normally would, so I was trying to get that real soft dry feel. In the end I think I may have pushed it a little bit much, but anyway, it's nice, it's clean, it is soft. There's a nice little bit of fruit there. That nectar just sitting really nicely. The citrus playing nice. I do think that I've pushed the chloride and the lactic a little too hard. It's taken a little bit of the crispness away. The dryness, which gives it really typifies that Brut sort of finish. So it's drinking a lot softer and rounder than its 1002 final gravity. But other than that, I'm really happy with it. It's got a very beery, and I know that's a really ridiculous word to use when you're describing beer, but it's got a very beery underfeel, like just sitting under. And I think that's coming from the cereal in the mash, and the simple Pilsner, sort of a Pilsner base. And I think that's the softness is supporting that. So definitely the beer itself, I think I'm really happy with the build of the beer. I think I'd be dropping the calcium, the chloride back maybe to 2-to-1. I used 2.2 of gypsum, 6.6 grams of chloride. I'd pull the chloride back to more like 3 grams, maybe even the same as the gypsum, around that 2.2 mark, and let it sit a little bit drier, and lactic just a little bit lower as well. I normally run about 4 ml of lactic on a full batch, so that would work, or even back to 3 or 4 ml, as per the recipe. Now you're going to need to adjust that depending on your own water source, but it's certainly a place to start. But again, that is a beer that the general public are really going to like. You stick that on tap for your family and friends that aren't particularly craft beer drinkers, they're gonna really enjoy that. As I said, as it's sitting there with the higher, that softer feel, it is feeling more like a commercial lager type of feel with a little bit more hop character. Pull that down, get it a little bit drier, make it a bit more snappy. Still gonna be a bloody really good beer. This fella, this is my XPA. This is the recipe that was supposedly from Malt Shovel. This is our XPA, which is one of my favourite beers of the style. I've grabbed myself a 6-pack whenever I can when I'm down the coast and I come across it. So this one started at 1044, finished at 1012, 4.2 ABV, so it's nice. It's down the lower end of a full strength, so it's not Not gonna knock you around too much. This was mostly, but it's a mix of Voyager Schooner, Voyager Valoria, and Gladfield Ale. Not in equal amounts, but so it's a fairly. And that was just because that's the sort of grains I had, and 6% toffee malt. So basically, your pale ale malt, 94%, 6% toffee malt, and that's your grain bill. Citra Galaxy, Eldorado, and Amarillo in the hops. Citra in the boil for 30 minutes. Citra Galaxy, Eldorado, Amarillo in the hop stand. Citra, Amarillo, Galaxy, and Eldorado again in the dry hop on day 5. So simple hopping schedule with just a good whack of each going through for a total of 25 IBU. And there's just a gentle nose on that. It's not not a massive nose, but it's quite appealing, and yeah, gentle fruit. It's got a nice, lovely colour. It's still holding a touch of haze. Now, the kegs have only been back in the fridge for 2 days. They've been shuffled around and travelled and whatnot. So this will drop in clarity over the coming weeks. But as it sits, it's a really nice looking colour. It's got some nice hue about it. Poured a nice head. It's dropped now. It's lacing really bloody, yeah, really nice. And again, it's a nice, simple, easy beer. There's some nice maltiness there, a little bit of sweetness from that toffee malt. Yeah, it brings a little bit of honey into the finish. The hops themselves are just sort of sitting. This is getting a little bit older now. The hops have faded a little bit on this. Now this was kegged on, where are we? It was back in August. 19th of August, 7th of October, November. Yeah, so it's 3.5 months old. And that was just the only way I could get through the batches for the wedding. So this is definitely going to be a better presented beer when it's fresh. But it's sitting not quite nice. It's quite rounded, but again, it has lost some impact from the age, and I can't really give a good review on where those hops sat due to the fact that I overgassed the keg initially, and because it was sitting here warm in the garage, it wasn't. I couldn't get it to a position where I could do a good taster on it. It was overcarbed and gassy and whatnot. But again, it's sitting quite nicely. I think it's not quite as sharp as its commercial equivalent, but water chemistry was fairly gentle on this. There's no, it wasn't pushing one way or another, chloride or sulfate. But again, if anything, I would be tempted to bring the sulfate up a little bit, drive it a little bit harder than the chloride. It's only a little bit bigger on the recipe. I'd look to increase that ratio a little bit more. Yeah. It's here nor there. I don't think it's going to kill you one way or another. I use Liberty Bell yeast on this. I think I would be changing that. I think that realistically, drinking that right now, that's the only thing I'd be changing from the recipe as it sits. I'll be changing that to a US-05, a BRY 97, or an M44. Something standard American ale yeast, clean, neutral. I think the Liberty Bell, it's a great yeast. I really like it. I think in this beer it's just giving a little bit. It's just bringing a little bit too much softness to the malt and the hops. So yeah, probably the only change I'll be looking at making it on that as it is. But I will be revisiting that at some point. But it's who knows when. who knows when. But that's a nice recipe to look at if you're looking for that style of beer. Last fella over here, the dark and moody fella on the end, the Scottish ale, called at the meeting of the clans. That was just the reference to the two Scottish heritages of both sides of my family and of the groom's family, which everyone at the wedding really loved the name. They loved the concept of the two clans coming together at the wedding, and this was received really well by quite a few people at the wedding, which surprised me. I didn't know how it would be taken in that sort of a crowd. This was a big, VB, Great Northern, mega small crowd, and pretty much everybody who had it, who had a glass of it, sourced me out to tell me how much they enjoyed it. It didn't get drunk as much as these two, but again, because I know that wasn't any great surprise. But so here she is, 1046 starting gravity, finished at 1010, 4.7% ABV. It was a rebrew of a Scottish ale I did last year. A change of the base malt. Didn't come out quite as dark as the previous batch, but that was all good. She was brewed using the imperial yeast, their tartan, the Scottish ale yeast, which I did with a starter. Base was Valoria from Voyager, some pale crystal and some chocolate wheat. Again, fairly simple. Willamay and East Kent Goldings for bittering, and some Willamay, 15 minutes left in the boil. Very simple. Fairly balanced water chemistry. That was her IBU 21. It was all about the malt. I haven't left much room in there for the head. She sort of partly sitting there. Let's just pour some of it all over the table. It might be some sort of new Scottish tradition. Anyway, so it's got some notes of a little bit of roast, a little bit of coffee. Only very gentle. Didn't want to be bringing too much of that in, which is why it's just a simple chocolate wheat. And I think that the chocolate wheat, and I've explained this in the original Brut IPA video for this beer, that it's not particularly traditional. It's more about a chocolate than a chocolate wheat. But I had the chocolate wheat here, I wanted to try it out. So I think it works within the beer. I don't think it makes too much difference overall. But it's got a chewy, cookie type of nose. It's not caramel, it's sort of like fresh cookies Yeah, just after you got them out of the oven, you break them open. Yeah, it's that sort of aroma. A little bit grainy. And you get very much that same sort of taste in it. You get a very distinct grainy feel. It's a little bit of burnt toffee on the back end. Touch of that, just that little touch of coffee. There's a light hint of roast garlic in the back palate. It's not that nasty garlicky flavour you get. It's a nice sweet smoke, like when you actually roast the garlic cloves, not raw garlic, or if you fry them with it. It's a sweeter note, and it's quite subtle, but it's sort of sits there. It's unusual, but it works quite nice. It's a nice earthiness from the East Kent and the Willamette, bringing up the back, and that combines with that nice grainy sort of a feel. It works really nice. Again, it's not quite as punchy as that original brew was, and I'm really upset that I didn't quite get that that same result, and I really don't know why, because the recipe is, you know, bang on the same. The only difference was the base malt, where I think originally I brewed it with a Gladfield. This time I've done with the Valoria from Voyager, which is actually a darker grain. It should be a darker grain. So technically this brew should have been a tad darker than the original. So I don't know what the heck happened there, but it did. The joys of brewing. I said the original brew was a wee heavy, a Scottish. I can't think the rating now. Oh, I'm not gonna, like, whatever shillings it is. I'm not gonna go there. But it's still drinking quite nice. It's a nice beer for something a little bit different. Be a good beer for a transition when you're going for something maybe, you know, lightish like these fellas, before you maybe go into something a little bit heavier. I think this would go really well for a nice dram of I think it's something a little bit smoky would go quite nice. Not a big smoky Isla, but something like a nice blend with a little bit of smoke in it. Johnny Walker Double Black would be quite nice. Bit of Chivas Regal, an aged Chivas with, like, again, with that little bit of, just a little bit of smoke in there. But definitely not something big. I don't think of not something like a big Ardbeg or a Lefroy or something like that. But yeah, just a nice Scotch would just sit really nice with that. Actually, that'd go really nice with nice little glasses. Nice dram or two of Drambuie beside it. The two, they go really nice together. But anyway, guys, free wedding beers with it. Links are all up there. all nice beers in their own way. You could go with them, run with them as they are, and they're going to give you a nice beer. I don't think any one of these beers is exceptional. But some of those just little minor changes wouldn't, certainly wouldn't hurt. Bit of water chemistry there. So that just being a little bit fresher certainly wouldn't have hurt. And as it is with this recipe, I would be inclined to just look, just increase the pale crystal and the chocolate wheat by maybe 50% each over the overall recipe, just to bring that depth up a little bit. And I think that would get it back into that realms of the previous recipe. Or go back and find it's the Scottish recipe last year. It was the Loch Doon Ale. I'll put a link to to it somewhere, and go with the different variation. But they're both a good beer. They're all good beers. They're all quite nice. So anyway, guys, that's it. So as always, if you've got any comments, any questions, stick them down the bottom. There's links to Patreon down there as well, if you're interested. Again, guys, thank you very much for your support. The subscribe button's down there, the thumbs up, all that sort of stuff. Play around, do what you like. But either way, that's me, Little John. So, wedding's done. I said to the missus, that's it, no more weddings for us. Both kids, married, done. Not paying for any more. Not paying, or setting up, or building up, or fucking taking down, or cleaning up after any more weddings. So, till I see you again, we're brewing beer, drinking beer, or talking beer. Good brewing. Cheerio.